Good morning. I'm Wright, the director of the Freeport Area Church Cooperative, a non-for-profit organization in Northwest Illinois that provides emergency food, clothing, and shelter to those in need. And we are a homeless service provider with shelters and transitional housing and permanent supportive housing in kind of the array of services that we provide. I am just beginning 7 days of a 10-day journey of being homeless, and just spent night 6. Now, before I freak anybody from the Lincoln Douglas Debate Society out, I did not sleep here in the park in Debate Square last night. I do have a spot that I created for myself a couple days ago up and around the Peck River, and that's where I stayed last night. So I just came here. I had to stretch my legs this morning. Man, they just stiff and sore, and I got up and I had to get moving and get the legs going, and it took about a half hour to really just get some feeling back in them. A couple blisters, and my calves and my ankles are just really giving me some problems. So so that's why I kind of just stopped here to just do the morning blog. Life out here is not easy, has not been easy for me, but I would say that it's getting a little easier. The shelter held up from the rain yesterday. It was dry when I got there last night, and made a pretty comfortable little spot. I actually think I dozed off at least maybe 4 or 5 hours straight last night out there, which maybe be another sign that I'm just becoming a little bit more comfortable with the situation. I'm becoming much more resourceful with food. I went to a free spaghetti supper last night over at the Church of Brethren. Saw a flyer for it, went and had a great meal. Met a lot of volunteers over there for FACC. And also had dinner with one of my guys that I've had, and you know, got an opportunity to talk a little shop. So felt real good about that conversation as well. So things have become a little easier. I think I'm kind of getting used to the daily grind of this, and focusing on what I have to do to make things work, to survive. You know, I was walking back to FACC yesterday morning, and to upload the blog and get squared away. And when I was walking there, a young guy came out. He was actually answering this door. Somebody else was visiting him, and he answered his door. And I kind of know this guy, young guy in the neighborhood. You know, a lot of us probably would just kind of write him off as just one of those guys, one of those thugs. I don't know if he's a thug or not, but you know, he's young, and he lives in the hood and that kind of stuff. But he had saw me on television, and he's like, "Hey, I like what you're doing, man." And he's like, "Are you hungry?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine, but thanks for the encouragement." He's like, "All right, you get hungry, you know where I'm staying, you come knock on my door, I'll give you some food." And so I was very appreciative of that. And you know, it started to make me think. It actually got me back to that confrontation I had a couple days ago with a guy on the street. You know, he's kind of trying to dog me out a little bit about being homeless. And there's a reality though here, and the reality is that you know, I'm not homeless. I'm living on the street, and I'm trying to find my way around, and I don't have the comforts of my home and my bed and the comforts of family around me, but I am different than guys who are really out here day in and day out. It's just a fact. I'm on the news. I got a video blog. Come next Thursday, this all ends for me. And you know, with that, comes people offering help and support because they know me. You know, they know who I am. They're my friends. They're family. They want to help, and I appreciate that. I really, really, really do. But a lot of us wouldn't do that on a regular basis for somebody that was homeless. Let's just be honest about that. You know, and I'm not saying the guy that on Carroll Street, you know, that I ran into, maybe he would with another homeless guy. I hope he would, you know, and maybe he's got that kind of heart, and I hope he does. But you know, he saw me on TV. Just, you know, like people see this blog, and you know, they want to reach out, and I think that's great. But the reality is that I'm probably the only homeless guy that has this forum. The other thing, and I was thinking about this last night, you know, that's the other thing is, man, boredom is part of it. And I got just bored last night. I probably got back to the spot at about 7 o'clock, laid there in the shanty for hours and just started thinking about stuff. And, you know, there's another reality of the difference between me and maybe somebody who's actually truly homeless. And that is, I've been able to survive out here in the streets, but I've been fairly focused. Food, shelter, you know, those have been priority for me. And I've, you know, made some mistakes, but I've also kind of kept my wits about me, and they have served me well so far. There's a reality. The reality is that though Freeport has some issues with crime and violence, it is not an overly violent community. And having known guys that have stayed at shelters in Chicago and Baltimore and Rockford and Milwaukee, Freeport is a cakewalk. We don't face the same kind of dangers on the street here as you would in those other communities. It's just a fact. So I haven't had to deal with violence. I haven't been attacked yet. I've known homeless guys who have been attacked. I haven't been beaten up. So that's a difference. I'm not living that fear. The other thing is that I don't suffer from disabling conditions of drug abuse, alcoholism, and even mental illness. And the reality is a lot of guys and women that we deal with at FACC, they do. They have that in their past. They've got alcohol problems, they've got drug problems, and they have mental illness. And I got thinking about that last night, and I was like, you know, you're doing this, Dean, but you know, you're focused. You're not distracted. You're not distracted by drugs, you're not distracted by alcohol, you're not distracted by a mental illness. Heck, you know, I'm not even distracted by cigarettes. And so, without having the need for cigarettes, without having the need for alcohol, without having the need for drugs, I don't really have a whole lot of need for cash. I've had like $1, you know, I think the last dollar I spent was on Thursday, and of the $6.50 that, you know, I've kind of got on my link card, my budget, you know, I've saved over the last 3 or 4 days. I haven't used it, and I still got quite a bit of food pantry food, you know, left. But, you know, I'm not selling my link card for 50 cents on the dollar, which would take me down to $3. It's because I don't have a big need for cash. But if I was a drug addict, if I was an alcoholic, and quite frankly, if I was just a chain smoker, I'd have the need for cash. I would sell that link card, and I would buy that alcohol, I'd buy that drug, I would buy those cigarettes. It's just what I would do. Because if I'm addicted to it, that's what I'm going to do with it. And I got thinking about that. You know, if I was strung out on heroin, if I was hyped up on crack cocaine, if I was drunk, you know, off of Irish Rose, living on the streets would be a lot more difficult. I wouldn't have my wits about me. I wouldn't know, you know, necessarily to develop some shelter that's going to keep me protected from the rain. I wouldn't be paying attention to the flyer at FACC that says free spaghetti dinner, Church of the Brethren, come one, come all, 5 to 7 o'clock Saturday night. I may not be focused enough to, get down to FACC on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and check the free, bread rack and see if I couldn't get, some muffins or some cranberry bread, which I have during this journey. What I remember that it's 11 o'clock and I should go to the Salvation Army and get some food at the soup kitchen. I don't know if I would, if I was strung out or if I was just, drunk all the time. And it's pretty hard to say these things because, they could be taken the wrong way. Because people out there right now might be saying, well, if they weren't addicts, if they weren't alcoholics, that's their problem, and they deserve what they get, Have that kind of addiction, have that kind of alcoholism, you're going to sleep outside, and that's just the way it is. It's certainly one way to look at it. But I don't know what drives people to alcoholism and drug addiction. My guess is if you asked 1,000 addicts, you'd get 1,000 different answers as to why they've become what they've become. I don't think when kids are growing up and the teacher asks them in school, what does everyone want to be? I don't think there's a kid that raises his hand and says, I want to be an addict. Another kid says, I want to be an alcoholic. Kid in the back says, let me be homeless. Nobody chooses this. It just happens. Some bad decisions, some upbringing, bad peer groups, whatever. It just happens. And homelessness sometimes is a result of that. And I think it'd be a lot more harder for me if I was in that kind of condition and not as focused as maybe as I have been about shelter and about food. It's just some thoughts that I had last night, and before I sign off here, I just want to make sure, please don't hear what I didn't say, and that is, I'm not saying it's easy out here. It's not, and I'm not saying that it'd be easier for people if they just weren't alcoholics and addicts. The reality is that a lot of these guys are, and we should be able to dig down deep into our hearts and extend that grace to people and be compassionate no matter if they're an addict or not, no matter what the causes of their homelessness. That grace and that forgiveness and that compassion should be our priority. It should personify who we are, and we should be always willing to extend those things to our fellow man. At the end of the day, homeless people, whether they're addicted to drugs and alcohol or not, are human beings as well. So that's the thought I leave today. It's probably a pretty good one for a Sunday. Might make a pretty good sermon. In fact, maybe I just preached one there. I'm Dean Wright, and day 7 of 10 days of homelessness, and I wish everyone a blessed Sunday. We'll talk to you later.